From the PEN studios, this is the Imperfect Moms Club with your hosts, Lisa and Brittany.
On this week's episode of Imperfect, Lisa discusses different parenting styles. Follow along to see which type might be best for you and your children.
So today I wanted to talk to you guys about a few different parenting styles. A few episodes ago I talked about the 4 attachment styles, the secure attachment, ambivalent attachment, disordered attachment, and then avoidant attachment. And so now we're kind of going to go into some parenting styles. I had my interview with Nina Cruz, conscious parenting coach. So we learned about conscious parenting, but there are some other ones that are also seeking to break the cycle of generational trauma. And so I wanted to go into those with you here. So first up, we have attachment parenting. So the information for this section comes from healthline.com. Actually, I got most of my information for this episode from healthline.com. So I guess that's my main source. And I'll link the specific articles at the end, or in the description. So just like attachment styles, the attachment styles episode, I'd like to first talk about where attachment parenting came from. So Dr. Sears was a pediatrician who, with his wife Martha, a registered nurse, wrote a book called The Attachment Parenting Book. This book centered around a baby's need for loving and secure attachments in order to thrive. This book centered around a baby's need for loving and secure attachments in order to thrive. They urged parents to sleep close to their babies, breastfeed them whenever possible, wear them wherever they could, and to hold them as much as possible. Dr. Sears and his wife made this parenting style popular in the early 2000s, but it's actually based on attachment theory, which is what immediately drew me into wanting to learn more about it. I definitely agree that closeness to the child's primary caregiver helps them develop secure attachments, which is what we want for all children. Securely attached children grow to be confident, independent adults that are sure of themselves and can create long-lasting and healthy relationships with others. But just how close does attachment parenting require the connection between parent and child to be? According to the article, being an attachment parent means constantly being on and available for whichever and whatever and whenever your child needs. Attachment parenting certainly isn't for the faint of heart. The attachment parent must sacrifice some or all of their own needs to make sure their child gets what they need first. So let's break down attachment parenting a bit further. Here are the 5 main principles. 1 is birth bonding. So between 0 and 6 weeks of age, as much skin-to-skin contact as possible and constant togetherness. Number 2 is baby wearing. So this promotes physical closeness and trust. Babies can safely learn about their environment, and parents can learn about their babies through their closeness. Number 3 is bed sharing. So this is where it gets a little controversial. I've always heard that bed sharing is dangerous because of the risk of rolling over onto baby, but I'm also pretty sure mommy instinct wouldn't let that happen. I mean, unless I'd had like an entire bottle of wine, which is something I've done. But that's not something I would do if I was taking care of a child. So I don't really know about this one personally, but let's see what the article says. So with bed sharing, there's less separation anxiety for the baby, and it's easier to breastfeed at night for the mom. Number 4 is belief in babies' cries. For attachment parents, cries are always a way to communicate needs, and they're never meant to manipulate. So parents must be responsive to every single cry to build trust between baby and caregiver. The parents are responsive to every single cry to build trust between baby and the parent, and the parent learns baby's communication style. Number 5 is balance and boundaries. Attachment parenting encourages attuning to the baby and the whole family. It encourages finding ways to respond yes or no calmly and appropriately, and asking for help when it's needed calmly and appropriately. Now that we know the core values of the style of parenting, let's get into how they shift and change with each new stage of baby's life. So from birth to age 1, attachment parenting is all about baby leading the way. So you won't see any talk of strict schedules for feeding or sleeping or any mention of baby training of any kind. There's lots of skin-to-skin contact. Breastfeeding starts as soon as possible after the birth. Although attachment parenting is all about breastfeeding being the best way to feed baby, Healthline, where I got the article from, has taken up a more fed is best approach. Breastfeeding or bottle feeding is also an on-demand thing during this period of time. Parents hold and wear baby as much as possible. Pacifiers are avoided, mostly to avoid confusion for breastfed babies. All cries are responded to quickly and sensitively, and parents study babies' facial expressions and cries in order to learn about babies' specific temperament, health, and each of their unique needs. Co-sleeping, although this is not recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. Empathy towards all outbursts and emotions, however negative. So, the toddler stage. So this is what I was most interested in learning about. Basically, Lily is 3 and has me wrapped around her finger. But I don't see that as a positive thing because I wanted to learn that sometimes she can solve problems on her own or self-soothe. Also, it's very plain to see that Lily knows how to manipulate with strategically timed cries to get what she wants. I'm also terrible with boundaries, though, so maybe attachment parenting has a happy middle for me to learn. So in toddler stage, it's still predominantly child-led, and parents wait for signs of readiness. Breastfeeding may continue past their first birthday. Empathy guides parent responses to child's needs. All negative emotions are validated. These underlying emotions often guide unfavorable behaviors. The child is autonomous and makes their own decisions when it is safe and appropriate to do so. Discipline is done with positive reinforcement rather than punishments. So I'll be honest, I'm not an attachment parent. I didn't even know attachment parenting was a thing until a friend of mine proclaimed that she is a proud attachment mama. I have some very similar qualities to that of an attachment parent, but also some very big differences. I too jump to attention at every cry and sound, but that's largely due to my complex PTSD, and honestly, I wish I could relax more. My need to answer every beck and call stems from some of my needs being unmet as a child, especially emotional ones. So now I'm hypervigilant. And after speaking with a conscious parenting coach a few weeks ago, I realized that it's hypervigilance that will actually keep me from truly attuning to my daughters. And that's my biggest problem with attachment parenting. I feel that if I continue to treat every sound as urgent, I'll lose my ability to intuitively and instinctively know when there's a problem and when there isn't one. If everything is an emergency, nothing is. That's just my opinion, though. I'm sure every attachment parent would disagree with me. But that's been my biggest worry, is that the hypervigilance will actually be harmful in the long run. Not to mention, I already don't take great care of myself, so I can't imagine making my needs any less of a priority. But attachment parenting is also about finding balance, so I'm sure I could find one that works for me. I am, however, extremely baby and child-led, just like attachment parents are, and I've been since Lily was born. I never stressed myself out about how often to feed her, how often to change her, how much or how little to cuddle her. I let her call the shots from day one, but mostly because postpartum depression had me feeling unmotivated. But later, in Less Depressed Me, realized that this was actually just my maternal instinct kicking in, and I was just trusting myself to do what I already knew how to do, even though I didn't consciously know that I knew how to do it. Coming up, we'll talk about positive parenting.
The Imperfect Moms Club is brought to you by...
Did you know Geico's now offering an extra 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies? That's 15% on top of what Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? Your teenager to help around the house?
Okay, Mom, I emptied the dishwasher, vacuumed the basement, and folded the sheets out of the dryer.
Wait, what?
Oh, and next, I'm going to clean Mitten's litter box.
Are we in some kind of prank show or something? That's a camera, isn't it?
There's never been a better time to switch to Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th. Limitations apply. Visit geico.com for details.
Hey, my friend, I just wanted to pop in for one quick second and just ask you if you wouldn't mind sharing a screenshot of the show right now on your social media. If you would do that and post it to your Instagram stories, to your Facebook stories, or something like that, and tag us, that would help our show so much. The best advertisement is by word of mouth from our listeners, just like you. If you found an episode that you truly love and that was helpful for you, or that just made you laugh along with us, please share that with your family and friends. We want to grow our community, and the only way to do that is with your help.
This is the Imperfect Moms Club on PEN. Get in touch with the show through the PEN listener hotline at 833-PODS-NET. That's 833-763-7638. And now, back to the Imperfect Moms Club on the Podcast Entertainment Network.
So next up on my list of new parenting styles filling up my social media feeds is positive parenting. In the 1900s, back when the norm was children should be seen and not heard, a man named Alfred Adler, who had studied human psychology, asserted the opposite. He proclaimed that children need to, in fact, be treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. Adler's sentiment is the norm today, but it was extremely countercultural in Adler's day and age. Soon, Adler was joined by psychiatrists named Rudolf Dreikurs. They both advised parents to treat their children respectfully, but also try not to spoil or coddle them. They asserted that spoiling children would only lead to them developing a sense of entitlement and create more emotional and behavioral problems to deal with. Essentially, positive parenting is about parents being both compassionate and firm, finding the perfect balance between those two seemingly opposite things. I love this. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm all about happy middles. With anything. The extremes of anything, no matter how good, are always bad in my book. So I'm glad that positive parenting encourages parents to find this balance. So with Alfred Adler and Rudolf Dreikurs paving the way with a compassionate yet firm approach to parenting, adaptive education, Jane Nelson created the positive discipline methodology. Here's a little bit about positive discipline. So it's discipline rather than punishment, and the consequences teach life lessons rather than just being punitive punishments. And there's positive timeouts. So it's not a punishment, and these timeouts usually happen in a pleasant, comfortable space. A positive timeout teaches children to take a break when they need to cool down. This also emphasizes positive reinforcements, so rewards, sticker chart, etc. I actually just made Lily a big girl chart to kind of do this positive reinforcement kind of thing. If she can go one morning without screaming for me to come get her, that's 3 stickers. So teachers are actually encouraged to use positive discipline in schools. Positive discipline ensures that kids learn from their mistakes. Positive parenting can be broken down into 3 main assumptions about children, which are as follows. Positive parenting assumption 1. A child's main goal is to belong and be significant. Children crave emotional connection with their caregivers. Children want to know how they fit in with their family, and when there are big changes, their sense of belonging can suffer. Children want to feel like they're capable and needed. Children want to know when they can contribute something to their family. It's all about power. Having power over their world and learning how to exert it is very important to a child. If they aren't able to use their power for good, then they'll need to exert it some other way, for bad. Positive parenting assumption 2. All behavior is goal-oriented. So bad behavior is a symptom, not the problem. And if you understand the underlying problem, then you find the solution. Positive parenting assumption number 3. A misbehaving child is a discouraged child. Essentially, a need isn't being met. Positive parents view misbehaving as a cry for help. Over time, they'll repeat the same negative behaviors again and again, thinking that those behaviors will get their needs met. Like I said before, I love the balancing act of positive parenting. I can respect my child but still set a clear boundary at the same time. Sometimes mommy says no, and that's final, no matter how much love and respect I have for them. As much as I love this balance, I am terrible at finding it in my own household. Lily runs the show, and there's not much I can say about it. Lily runs the show, and there's not much I can say or do when she's set her mind to do something. It helps that I don't have any restrictions on her, but it definitely gets frustrating when I have to tell her to come here a million times before she finally decides to drop the toy she's clutching and walk over to me. She respects the heck out of my husband, though. I guess I have a lot to work on discipline-wise, but I'm hoping things will get a little easier once we're past the 3 nature phase. Honestly, what I really need to work on is my trauma responses. I didn't even realize how much I was struggling before I had children. My house is a trigger city now, and it's so difficult for me to stay in the current moment and just handle what's happening in front of me. And some of the anger I feel toward Lily is actually anger toward my inner child. I haven't even begun to unpack that one yet. It might just be a frustration of my inner child for not being comfortable speaking my mind. Maybe little Lisa's jealous? I don't know. Whatever's happening inside me, I have been working so hard on it. My girls don't deserve to deal with any of that. I want to get it all under control as quickly as I can. All I want is to be able to always be present for my beautiful girls. After a quick break, we'll talk about gentle parenting.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Imagine a world where potty training is fun, fast, and easy. Only pull-ups have Disney graphics that fade when wet to teach big kids to stay dry. So they're motivated to keep the music going.
Did you know Geico's now offering an extra 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies? That's 15% on top of what Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? Your dentist to actually believe you?
And you're flossing every day.
Absolutely.
Great. And you're cutting down on your sweets?
Of course.
Wonderful. Then I don't even need to look in there.
Great. See you in 6 months.
There's never been a better time to switch to Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th. Limitations apply. Visit geico.com for details.
Enjoying this show? Be sure to check out all the shows across the Podcast Entertainment Network, where there's a show for every interest. Visit www.podcastentertainment.com to browse through the full collection of shows. And now, back to the Imperfect Moms Club on the Podcast Entertainment Network.
Another parenting style that has been all the rage lately is gentle parenting. Just like Dr. Sears in the Attachment Parenting book, gentle parenting came about through the Gentle Parenting book, authored by British childcare expert Sarah Ockwell-Smith. Gentle parenting is built on a foundation of respect and empathy toward the child, and the goal is better understanding of children's needs. Instead of setting expectations and having rules, gentle parents give their children choices, and their children exercise their free will. The 3 C's of gentle parenting are connection, communication, and consistency. Although according to the Healthline article, gentle parents also practice a great deal of patience. The biggest of the 3 C's is connection. The more connected you are to your child, the more likely they'll want to behave in a way that pleases you. That's a quote from Healthline. Quote, the more connected you are to your child, the more likely they'll want to behave in a way that pleases you. Healthline, end quote. These 3 C's are interwoven within each of the principles of gentle parenting, and I'll go over those now. First, we have empathy. Gentle parents are encouraged to pay close attention to their child's feelings and needs, and every bad behavior comes from an underlying negative emotion that needs to be addressed. Empathy. I love empathy. I guess that makes sense since I'm an empath. I've always prided myself on being able to sense where others are coming from. They share their opinions, regardless of whether I agree with them or not, and knowing how to read the room well. Empathy is the biggest thing I want to teach my daughters. Tuning to people really is such a beautiful and powerful thing. Whenever a situation arises where someone around Lily is feeling a negative emotion, I try and explain it to her. An example of this is when her best friend came over to play with her toys a few weeks ago. Lily and her bestie were looking at the sea of toys in the playroom at our house, but each time that this little girl would take one of Lily's toys, Lily would grab it away. She's only 3, so we're still working on the concept of taking turns and sharing. Each time Lily grabbed her toys away, her friend would get sad, so I explained to Lily why. Her friend was sad because she came over to see Lily and all her toys, and clearly thought that they were pretty cool. But when Lily took her toy away from her friend, it wasn't very nice. Her friend wasn't trying to steal from her, all she wanted was to share in her awesome toys. I really hope Lily develops good empathy, because empathy and understanding are 2 things that we need a lot more of in this world. The second principle is respect. So basically the golden rule. Treat your child the way you would like to be treated. Children are not less than just because they're small. Also, instead of don't interrupt, say, I'll be available to you after I'm done talking to Dad. The third one is understanding. Children's brains are still developing, and as such, they can't control their behaviors like adults can. Gentle parents make sure their expectations are appropriate for the age of their child and their current stage of development. This next one is important, and that's boundaries. Boundaries are very important, but the fewer rules, the easier it is to stay consistent with them. Rules teach the child a better way of doing things. We go to bed after only one movie so that we're not tired and late for school in the morning. Setting boundaries is encouraged because boundaries make children feel safe. It reminds me of that experiment that was performed on children playing on a playground. At first, the playground was not enclosed, and the kids could just run off in any direction. Instead, the kids stayed in the center of the playground and didn't venture out. Later, when there was a fence around the playground, the children ventured all the way to the fence. This showed that kids prefer knowing where their limits or boundaries are. So the last principle of gentle parenting is that rewards and punishments are not a thing. They're not a thing because rewards and punishments only teach children that if they act a certain way, they'll get something out of it. So gentle parenting is pretty similar to attachment parenting, but it seems to focus less on physical closeness and more on emotional connection. Gentle parenting also focuses on creating specific boundaries with a child, however few there are, rather than boundaries for keeping the whole family in sync. Gentle parenting seems a bit more my style due to the focus on emotional connection and empathy, but I still wouldn't pick one particular style for myself in my home. I also really like that gentle parenting is about mutual understanding between parent and child. Instead of just saying no, and they have to listen because they're the kid, parents explain the reason behind the no. That's the boundary. I've always done that with Lily. I'm consistently explaining every little reason for every little thing to her. Even if she's not old enough to fully comprehend what I'm saying yet, I always want to make sure I'm giving her my reasons for the boundaries. I don't want Lily to just be scared of getting in trouble. I want her to choose to respect the boundary because she understands why it's there. How I choose to look at boundaries, though, is a bit different from how gentle parenting sees them. I agree that a good way to look at boundaries is as a better way of doing things, but even beyond that, I believe that some boundaries should be set by the child for themselves. I believe in children having freedom to explore and learn things on their own, safely of course, and in doing so, learning their own limits. I found that there are a lot of boundaries that I didn't even have to set with Lily. She learned on her own what she could and couldn't do. There are some hard and fast boundaries, however, like don't play with knives or oven hot, but for the most part, Lily doesn't choose to do unsafe things or things behind my back that I would frown upon. My husband has told me before that I'm too lax with Lily because he has more boundaries for her than I do, but he's also not with her all day, watching her and what she does. He doesn't get a ton of time to tune himself to her, so his boundaries seem like the standard boundaries that you could set for anybody. I think this is one of the main reasons I love being a stay-at-home mom so much. I spend so much time with my daughters that I've learned all of their whims and I've seen how they are in the world. It makes me more comfortable with letting them figure things out for themselves. So yeah, I guess I'm more of a gentle parent than a detached one, but I still don't like the labels.
Want to get in touch with the show? Email us at imperfect@podcastentertainment.com. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Imperfect Moms Club.